Well, just when I thought it was safe to take a little bit of a break, we have even more albums coming out. And this one coming from a band that I've been a little bit lukewarm over for the past several releases. But will this one rejuvenize my love for them? Well, let's find out. It's not how I remember it. Versions of the Truth by the Pineapple Thief. Oh, I just realized I don't have anything here. Let's see, what am I going to put there? You know what? Let's put a Porcupine Tree album. So the Pineapple Thief is a crossover progressive rock band. They're kind of a contemporary rock band that solidified themselves in the late 90s as being this really like newer style of stretching out tracks. And what I particularly loved about these guys is exactly that. And at first they were kind of like a Porcupine Tree clone, a little bit, being that space rock. And as I mentioned, my favorite aspect of this band is just lengthening their songs into the 12, 15, 20, sometimes 30-minute length, where it just builds itself up into such a grand seascape of music. This is specifically found on Variations of a Dream, What We Have Sown, Tightly Unwound, and Someone Here Is Missing. And the first album actually of theirs that I heard was their 2012 album of All the Wars. The last track off of that album still gives me chills, and I still love it. Now, unfortunately, all the albums that they've released post All the Wars have left me wanting more and left me cold. Magnolia, Your Wilderness, and Disillusion have been fine, but I've never really found myself wanting to come back to this. And this is even with the addition of Gavin Harris on drums since Your Wilderness in 2016. So Variations of the Truth is their 14th studio album. So with Variations of the Truth, I wasn't all that excited for a new project, only because, as I mentioned, the last three releases of Magnolia, Your Wilderness, and Disillusion being less than stellar for me. Like, I did enjoy Disillusion more so than Your Wilderness. Like, Your Wilderness just left me completely cold. And Magnolia had like one or two tracks off of that album that I was like, okay, this is all right. But those longer stretches of music, those moments that allow the band to just stretch their legs and see what comes of their music have been left at the wayside for tighter orchestrations, for punchier tracks, and honestly for some lackluster and teethless moments that I myself haven't really attached to. And Variations of the Truth, on the one hand, I really appreciate the overall presentation and concept of the album. I like how this album plays with the idea of, we make our own realities based on the information that we choose to devour and consume. I feel like this album is in fact a step up from Your Wilderness and Magnolia. It's probably on par with Disillusion, if I'm being perfectly honest. The tracks that really have some major teeth for me are the first two tracks, Variations of the Truth and Break It All. I find myself really coming back to Break It All. Break It All is bringing me back to those moments, those really tight and gripping moments from Tightly Unwound as well as All the Wars, where it's really engaging, it really grabs you, it's got that really punchy bass line that's being dropped down from John Sykes, and John is able to just really masterfully pinpoint where he wants to go within this bass line and put it in his forefront, and that really grounds the track in with this punchy rock aspect. So with these two tracks, I feel like they really hammer it home, and they really have this really clear idea of what the track wants to be and how it's going to fill out. Unfortunately, some of the other tracks do waver a little bit, and I feel like they're a little bit scatterbrained, specifically with Demons and Driving Like Maniacs. Now, that might be part of the concept of the track, but I feel like there's no real tangible aspect of this, and it is taking a chapter from more of their mellower side, but where those mellower sides had some kind of a foundation, some strong groundwork, I don't feel like these two tracks quite measure up to that same level. And similarly with Leave Me Be, as I mentioned before, where it's got this really cohesive concept going on with it, it is a little bit more on the mellower side, but I feel like with everybody coming around to really push this album forward, Gavin is doing his like absolute masterful work on the drumline without stealing center stage. Like, he's adding just a little bit of the inflections here and there as a nice little spice overall. But what I really appreciate with Leave Me Be is the nice and gentle build-up. Like, this was giving me those feels that I had from those earlier works from the band, but the track itself is rather short, at being 4 minutes, and I feel like it needed just a little bit more time to really blossom itself into something bigger. But again, they're able to handle that softer, mellower build with a really nice and satisfying crescendo near the end. And it's interesting too, because one of the smaller tracks and slower tracks is Too Many Voices, but what I really appreciate on this one and scattered throughout the album is the interesting sounds that we have on here. The synthesizer that's permeating and leading the track through has this almost retro feel to it, like something from like a Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo that grounds the album. It almost makes a bass surrogate because of the lower pitch that the sound is making. And I really like that. I just wish that the actual track that's surrounding it would have a little bit more bite and a little bit more punch. And kind of same with Our Mire. Like, Our Mire is one of my favorite tracks off of the album. It doesn't quite get to the same punch and same oomph that the first two tracks have. It is the longest track at being over 7 minutes, but I was really hoping for that, again, stretching the legs and really bleeding us through. But Gavin, again, is a masterful work on the drumming. His ability to really hone in the craft in that sense was very, very well done. And I do like the ebb and flow that this track had, but I wish that the payoff near the end was more than just a rehashing of the beginning part of the track. And the last track that I really like is The Game, the final track. This one at least held my attention for most of the outcome. I didn't feel myself weighing or waxing on this one. I found myself wishing a little bit more that there was a little bit more tangibility to the overall track. But it still went out on a very high note and left me with a pleasant taste in my mouth. So yeah, overall, Versions of the Truth by the Pineapple Thief was fine. For this later day Pineapple Thief, I don't feel myself needing to come back to this album. I think it's more on the positive side of their, I guess, later day, like from the 2010s onward. But yeah, this isn't like a revigoration that I was kind of hoping for, but I also didn't have a very high standard, so I wasn't disappointed, but I also wasn't thrilled with what we were getting. And it's for that I would say stream this album. If you're a fan of the Pineapple Thief, you're still going to get something out of this album quite positively. But if you're not a fan of this band and you were kind of hoping for something really groundbreaking or something really exciting, I personally wouldn't recommend this. I would honestly say go back to some of their other albums like All the Wars, Tightly Unwound, Someone Here Is Missing, or Variation of the Dream. Those would be the ones that I would go to first rather than starting here. So anyway, that's my thoughts of Versions of the Truth by the Pineapple Thief. What did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, let me know by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.